What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is comedian Steve Trevino. Steve is becoming one of the country's fastest growing comics. He embodies the title America's Favorite Husband. He's got a new comedy special out, My Life in Quarantine, that's available on Amazon. The link is down there in the description below. While you're down there checking that out, smack the subscribe button, tap that like, and let's jump into it right now with comedian Steve Trevino on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Steve Trevino. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if I fit into that category, but I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, let's start it right here then. How many kids do you have and how old are they?
We have a 5-year-old boy, and then we recently just had a little girl 2 months ago, and it really is different. I'll tell you that from boy to girl, it's a different feeling. It's a different everything, really.
Yeah, well, congratulations there. Yeah, I have 3 boys myself. Then we got the girl on our 4th try. You got 1 and 1. You going to try to break the tie, or are you all done?
I think we're good. And we were actually having that debate. You know, my wife pretty much has said that I'm going to get my vasectomy. There was no other option. There was no like, well, maybe I should do it. It was like, hey, set the appointment, go do it. And then my neighbor, who has 3 kids, he walked over to have dinner at our house, and he had this look on his face. I said, Jeff, are you okay? And he goes, we're pregnant, and my vasectomy appointment is tomorrow. So I go, yeah, I better get on it.
Well, hey, Steve, if you could, please, just take a second here. If you could hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, I'm a stand-up comedian. I grew up in a small town in Texas called Gregory, Portland, Texas, and I slowly through my stand-up started talking about started with my wife and my frustration with her, and now it's evolved into me, my wife, my son, having my son, how that has changed my life, and now with this little girl, all the specials that I have put out, I'm on number 4, have almost become a chronicle of my life, and almost episodic, right? Where here's a show about meeting my wife and getting engaged. The next hour that I did was we're married and here's my frustrations. The next hour is, oh my God, we just had a kid. So that's what I do, and it's really become my brand and what I enjoy doing. And I talk about my wife a lot, but I'm also madly in love with her. So I always say that imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah, well said. And I think that it's important what you're doing. And obviously it connects with so many people, where a lot of people are married. A lot of people have kids. We all go through the same everyday challenges that brings. So I think it's good that I love the twist that you put on everything and the way that you incorporate your family into it. And so you were doing stand-up before this. So how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
Well, man, when you become a father, it's all of a sudden, well, at least for me, I'm always thinking of every single move, and what I mean by that is, do I want to buy my kid that candy bar that he wants in the aisle at the grocery store? Everything that I do now, I at least try to think about everything. And before, I didn't think about what time I needed to go to bed, or how much I could or couldn't drink, or what I could and couldn't do. And I think the biggest change for me is that everything I do makes me think of, how does this affect my son? Am I teaching my son a good lesson? Is my son learning? Because they learn by watching, right? My son has never seen me intoxicated. That's by choice. But that's the biggest thing that for me has changed is being more strategic about my day-to-day.
Yeah, good stuff. And how about as far as your stand-up itself goes? I know obviously, you cut on your wife a lot here or there. How does she feel about the material that you put out there when you're doing your stand-up? Is she cool with this? Does she throw ideas at you? Is she along with the program here? Or
yeah, you know what, man? I am lucky to have an amazing wife with thick skin. She's very confident. We have a very candid relationship at home. We both try to make each other laugh, and sometimes with shock value. And we decided that I was going to walk on stage and I was going to deliver, the real version of our marriage. And And yes, she does come to me and go, this is what I did today. I think it's hilarious. Maybe there's something there. Or sometimes we're mid argument and then we'll both stop and start laughing because we know what's going on stage. So she's definitely in on it. And I hope that when people watch my stand up, I think the real fans, they see the love that I have for her and that she is playing along.
Yeah, I think that definitely comes across, Steve. And one thing that I think is obviously a big skill set to have, being a comedian and doing what you do, is for me, I'm a railroad mechanic. I work on diesel locomotives and stuff like that. So it's like for me, if I'm having a bad, not a bad day, but if I'm having like an off day with my wife, or we're having a family discussion or some kind of drama's going on with the kids or something like that, I go to work and be like, hey, let me just do my job, leave me alone, and not have to really socialize too much. You getting up there on stage, you can't do that. You still got to bring the same energy, bring the same jokes and stuff like that. So does that play into it? Is it difficult for you to kind of navigate that switch when you're having like that off day to be able to go up there and still turn it on?
Well, and that's funny you say that. That is the hardest thing about my job. I was on stage and I get a phone call that my aunt suddenly passed away from cancer, and I'm about to walk on stage. And I was very close to this aunt, and in my head I go, wait a minute, these people paid to see me, and they're going to get the very best show that I can give them, and I try to be as professional as possible. And that's the hardest part of my job, is that I can't go to work grumpy, and not to mention I can't leave the house being grumpy, because a very good friend of mine from Everybody Loves Raymond, Brad Garrett, he told me, he said, look, Steve, this is the profession that we chose. The minute you leave your home, you're performing. And I took that advice to heart. So, just today I was washing my wife's car at the car wash. 3 people sat there and chatted with me we ended up there for 30 minutes. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to be there, but I gave them whatever time they wanted. So, and I smiled and I was happy that they were there. So the hardest part of my job is keeping that smile on my face, and being positive, and trying to be the comedian.
Yeah, because you are the brand. I mean, that's the bottom line there. So, and how about as far as I know your oldest is only 5 now, and you got a newborn. So, how about as far as discipline goes right now, Steve? Are you kind of like a spanker, a timeout guy? And do they know like when you're being serious, when you're fooling around?
Yeah, I was very lucky that my dad was, he always taught me, know the line. There is a line and you need to know it. We are lucky enough to I don't have to spank my son. I'm not opposed to spanking. I don't know if I'll spank him in the future. But so far, I am go to your room. I'll be up there in a minute to talk about why I got upset. And what I'm big on, look, fix it. Whatever you did, fix it. Let's get over whatever happened right now and show me that you changed. And it seems to be working, and I'm lucky that and I always put it on him. When it comes to discipline, I go, look, man, you're embarrassing yourself. Is that who you want to be? And for the most part, my son will go, no, Dad, that's not who I want to be. Then don't be that. I don't go, oh my God, you're embarrassing me, or oh my God, I'm going to spank you, or oh my God, I'm mad. I just go, hey, dude, is that who you want to be? Is that how you want to act? Because if that's the way you want to act, then go for it. And I'm lucky enough to have a kid that goes no. And nightly, when I do bedtime with him, we're having discussions about what it is to be a good man. And every night we go, hey, do you want to be a good man, son? That's up to you. And I explain to him that being a not good man is easy, but being a good man is hard. And we have those discussions. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing kid that I haven't had to spank. We don't really have to discipline much. He does do what he's supposed to do, and he's just a good kid. And I think it comes from, our discussions and us, because people don't realize you don't treat them like babies. Their brain works like our brain, and if you don't teach them to, my thing was, man, if I spank this kid, what does that teach him?
Yeah, that's really cool, Steve. And well, one of the things I talk about on my show a lot is the fatherless crisis that we have going on in our country. We got so many kids that are growing up without a father in the home. That's why I like when you refer to your father there, bringing you up. And I think without having that father, without having that discipline that comes from the father, I think it leads to a lot of the problems that we're seeing in our society. And I'm not really too for a lot of these shows and movies out there that kind of dunk on the father role, and they make him look like a weaker character. And it just seems like this married guy never has any fun, never gets laid, never has any action. And they always glorify that single guy as to attain to. But that's not to say that we still can't have material like you out there that are doing it in a way that we can understand. And we do see the love for your wife and your family. And we can also have some jokes about it. I think we do need that. But I think far too often we see that father role played in a bad light.
Oh, and it drives me crazy, and I don't think that people realize how important the father role is. And, interestingly enough, and I hate to be a man of a certain age, but it is really cool. Recently, I started getting on TikTok and putting my bits on TikTok, and I'm getting messages from young boys that go, "I wish you were my dad," or "I watch your podcast, Steve, and I'm learning how to father because I didn't have a dad from your podcast." So it's been a little bittersweet of like, oh man, am I that old that I'm somebody's mentor, somebody's dad? But we need those, and I was lucky enough to have a very strong father figure. However, he suffered severely from PTSD, and I saw a side of my father that was not a great thing to see. But as you get older, you realize that the man went through Vietnam and suffered a lot, and you take the good things and you find the good things that your dad did, and you try to improve upon those. And then you also have to look at my father who didn't grow up with a father figure. Hey, he did a pretty damn good job himself, doing the best he could. And then I try to improve on it. But in my act, it is one of those where it's like, hey, I'm not the dumb one here. This is my wife. She loses her keys every day, and when you watch sitcoms or commercials, oh, stupid husband, like, come on, we are just, and I always say, me and my wife are a equal fight every day.
Yeah, and I think just like what you said there, like how your father grew up without a father, and slowly that cycle is being broken now as far as you with your kids. So I think that's the main thing, is trying to turn that around. I think we're trying to solve all these other social issues that we see going on, but at the core of this whole thing, at the nucleus, is our family units. And if we can't repair them, I think we'll just be going around in circles.
Well, and that's why I make sure to let my son know that I am proud of him and that I love him and that he is loved, so that he can be a confident kid. And I say it all the time in my stand up. I go, we're only with our parents for 18 years, yet some of us spend the rest of our lives trying to fix that. And
Yeah.
with me, I'm trying to make sure that my son knows, hey man, it's on you. Whatever decision you make is on you. I'm going to love you, but I'm going to guide you in a way that is going to teach you right from wrong. But at the end of the day, your life is your life, and it's your life. You have to be hungry. Don't do it because you want to impress your dad. Do it because you have it in your heart to go and do it and to be successful. So yeah, you're definitely trying to break the cycle. I have my anger issues that I deal with, and I try to make sure that my son doesn't see me react in an angry way. So I joined a mixed martial arts class to possibly help me with my anger issues. And I want to coach my son in jujitsu. So my son's in jujitsu, and if I work hard enough, I will be able to teach him. So, everything I do now is family oriented. Everything I do now is with the kids, with the wife, because like I said, 18 years of their life, they're with us and they're gone. So I want to cherish every single moment I can with them.
Yeah, great stuff, Steve. And I know now, obviously, the pandemic has switched around the way we do almost everything now, especially the way we consume content now. People haven't been going to the live stand-up shows as much, obviously, this past year. So how did the pandemic kind of affect or impact what you do, and what could we expect to see from you in the future here?
Man, you know what? The pandemic really pushed me to find other avenues, and one of those avenues was a podcast. Me doing my stand up and having fans through my stand up. Everybody wanted to meet the wife. Everybody wanted to know her side of the story. So our podcast is exactly that. It's husband and wife, and we're talking about the struggles of raising a child, and the struggles that me and her have between each other, and finding those other avenues to be able to put out there. And for me, look, I want off the road. I don't want to be on the road, like I have been for 20 years, 50 weeks a year. I want off the road. I want to teach Little League. So, that's kind of the focus right now. And it's been a lot of fun for me and my wife. And I tell people all the time, man, I love the podcast because my wife and I actually hash out conversations uh, uh, civilly, because we know somebody's watching. So it really has helped our relationship. But I'm going to continue to do stand up, continue to put out specials. We put out a special called My Life in Quarantine, where again I involved the wife, my son, my mom, my father-in-law, so that they can see the whole family. And in that show, I want to get more personal and more real. So we tackled our miscarriage. My wife and I struggled to get pregnant, and then we had a miscarriage after almost 6 months, which was devastating to us. And we talk about it in the special. And somehow I made it funny and fun to watch. And I just want to be that family that is honest and real and go, oh my God, that's us.
Yeah, and much needed right now too, Steve. So I really love what you're doing. I'm going to include a link in the description of this podcast episode to your podcast, so my listeners can get over there and check it out. And the last thing I want to hit you with here, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
Man, my son started speaking very early, and I think that's because I took the approach that I explained everything I was doing, everything around me to my newborn. And I'm doing that with my daughter now. For example, if I walked into a room and that room was blue, I would go, this room is blue, and that's a wall, and that's a light switch. And I would constantly, my wife thought I was crazy. She goes, what are you doing? You're just talking to yourself. I go, no, this child knows nothing. They don't know colors. They don't know walls. They don't know anything. So that's the advice that I would give to young dads, is that talk to your newborn, communicate with that newborn. Make sure that you realize that child knows nothing. And it is up to you to literally teach them everything.
Yeah, well said. I love the message. This has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Steve Trevino, you're a first-class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time right here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks for having me.